What's Love Got to Do With It isn't just a music biopic.
It's the story of a music icon, Tina Turner, and all that she had to endure just to survive and ultimately reinvent herself in her mid-40s.
And more importantly, What's Love Got to Do With It forces viewers to ask a brutal question. How do you escape somebody who controls your money, career, confidence, and identity? So this film was released in 1993, and I remember when it came out because apparently I am old at this point. But I remember when it came out, and at that point, if you grew up in mostly the 80s and into the early 90s like I did, then you knew Tina Turner probably from her reinvention when she came out with the song What's Love Got to Do With It. I remember singing that song and other songs when I was a kid, but I didn't know her whole story. I didn't know about this history. I just knew of Ike and Tina Turner, but mostly Tina Turner walking around in the leather outfits and the wild hair as a rock star singing What's Love Got to Do With It. And of course, I was a kid in the early 80s when this came out, and I had no idea what love had to do with it or all that she was really talking about, from her life story in this song. But let me just tell you this one little story. I used to love that album, and there is a song on that album called Private Dancer. And for those of you who know, you know that my parents didn't like me listening to certain music, and I've told you guys in the past. But Private Dancer was a song that I was not supposed to be listening to. But for whatever reason, I just loved that song. And I'd be listening to that thinking stupidly that I could listen to it on a Walkman and that the people around me couldn't hear what I was listening to. And a couple times I got caught listening to that song. But yeah, that still is my song from that album. But anyway, the movie is based on Tina Turner's autobiography, I, Tina, which was by Tina Turner, of course. And the film stars Angela Bassett and Lawrence Fishburne. Now, it's 1993 when this comes out. We saw them together as a used-to-be couple in what movie? Go to the comments. I'll ruin it for you, or Heit will. What movie were they in together in 1991?
Boys in the Hood.
Yes, playing Trey's parents, Reva and Furious Styles. So it was good to see them back together again on screen, but this would be nothing like how we saw them interact in Boys in the Hood. And so in terms of the acting and the accolades for this film, Angela Bassett received widespread acclaim for her performance as Tina Turner. And one of the things they talked a whole lot about at the time is the physical transformation she underwent to become Tina Turner, because everybody knows Tina Turner was known for her legs and whatnot back then and just having this athletic body to be able to do all of those dances on stage. And when I tell you Angela Bassett hit the gym, you could see her arms and her back and, just her entire body, how hard she worked on her body for this film. She looked amazing, and it was just crazy. And in fact, when I look at old video of Tina Turner, I'm like, man, Angela's, her guns were, I don't think Tina Turner's guns were, like that. So she just did an amazing job. But I do remember that being a serious conversation. And then also, in terms of Lawrence Fishburne, he was praised for his portrayal of Ike Turner with both like this charisma and menace at the same time. And so you guys should also know that we have gotten into actually covering biopics. We've done Ray, we've done Notorious, All Eyes on Me, Straight Outta Compton, and we're adding to the list. Go to the comments and tell us a biopic that you think we should cover. In these biopics, the actor, how much do they really need to look like the person that they're portraying? In this film, neither Angela Bassett nor Ike Turner really look like Tina Turner or Ike Turner. Neither these actors don't, but you believe that they are these people, right? So
it depends on probably your age, and who you know at the time that the stuff comes out. So we pick apart the stuff like Whitney Houston and Michael Jackson and all of that about how the people don't look like that because Tupac and all that, because we just so used to seeing these people, and for some reason we want them, that to be a part of the movie, one of the most important things. But if you don't know the person, then you don't even think about it. So like Pursuit of Happiness and Antoine Fisher, you know, you don't think anything about that. So you're not even worried about how the person looks. So I
Right.
think it just kind of takes away from being able to enjoy, I guess, these biopics. But
But then you have some
when you're
movies
less
where
familiar with the people, then, you know, you're not worried about how they look.
yeah, but you have some movies where, especially the ones in our lifetime, where the people look so much like, you know, you talk about All Eyes on Me and Demetrius Shipp playing Tupac. I mean, they look related. And so, you know, you have that, but then is the art, you know, what's the acting skill? And so there, it's always, I feel like, a little bit of a compromise. But that biopic playlist is linked in the description for those of you who are interested in seeing the other biopics that we've covered. And don't forget to suggest it. But we must get into what's love got to do with it and talk about this movie.
I'm Heit.
And I'm Cheri.
And you've discovered Axiom Amnesia.
We want to thank all of the supporters who helped to make this video possible. If you want your name to appear alongside these contributors, make a one-time donation via Cash App, or you can head on over to patreon.com/axiomamnesia to enjoy all of the benefits of becoming a monthly subscriber. The co-executive producers of this video are Veronica J. Douglas and Regis Hale, who requested this film through Axiom Amnesia's Deep Dive on Demand program that we'll tell you more about later. So let's just get right into the film. The film opens with Tina Turner as a little girl known as Anime Bullock, and she's getting kicked out of church while she's singing the song This Little Light of Mine because she's just too flamboyant. She's singing with too much energy and feeling, and they don't like it, and the church has kicked her out. And I'm like, the hypocrisy of the church not wanting her to let her light shine as a little girl. You know, but she walks home from church, and as soon as she's walking home, she's living in, I think, Nutbush, Tennessee. And when she gets home, her mother is actually abandoning her. Her mother has her older sister, Aileen, in the car with her, and she's about to burn off and leave Tina on her own mother, Tina's grandmother. And the grandmother is cussing, talking about, you know, don't leave Anime here. You can't leave her here or whatever. And the mother just burns off and leaves her. So she's been abandoned as a child of about, I'm estimating 5-6 years old. So then the grandmother reassures her after her mother leaves, like, don't worry, it's going to be okay. So then we jump to 1957 in St. Louis, where Anime is a teenager. And this is where we see, you know, the first glimpse of Angela Bassett as Anime Bullock, aka Tina Turner. So she's on a bus, and she gets off the bus in St. Louis, and she is there at, you know, the bus stop. And her mother, who is played by Jennifer Lewis, and her sister, Aileen, are there to pick her up. And the reason that she's there is because the grandmother has passed away, and obviously she needs a place to stay. I just want to jump in here and let you guys know that, of course, we always want to be transparent, but the bottom line is that things have changed very significantly here on this platform, especially over the past few months. And so we need to do more things in order to sustain Axiom Amnesia on its own. And so this is why you're seeing us shift toward a more viewer funded model. You know, if you think about NPR and all of that stuff to keep the channel going. So if you've seen more posts about executive producer and co-executive producer opportunities, memberships, or merch, that is why. And even in the videos, this is why you're hearing it. And so if you would like to help with any of these options directly, support the future of our videos, we always appreciate it. And everybody who has jumped in any way, we appreciate it more than you know. So I just want to say that. But great ways to support the channel are become a co-executive producer at axiom.app/support. And you'll also see the opportunity, if you want to choose the movie that we talk about, being an executive producer, you can do that there. And you also can get our merch there at that same spot on our website. And another way is get access to our over 100 exclusive videos that nobody else has access to by becoming a member. And there are 3 ways you can do that. Our preferred way is at axiom.app, but you can also become a member on Patreon or YouTube as a channel member. All of these memberships give you the access to this catalog. The link to become a member in one of these ways is linked in the description. So we appreciate it as always. And I just wanted to hop in here and let you guys know that. now she goes there in 1957. So the one thing I always wonder is when you have an older actress who is playing the role of somebody who's supposed to be a teenager or who's younger at the time, they try to put them in ponytails and stuff to try to make them look younger. But I'm like, how believable was Angela Bassett in 1992-93 time frame playing Tina Turner in 1957? And I feel like if we do the math, Tina Turner in 1957 is supposed to be about 17 or 18 years old, right? And at this point, Angela Bassett in about 93, 92 is like 34 or 35 years old, playing somebody who's 18. Was she believable in this scene is the question. I asked you at the time. Do you think she seemed like a young girl, or do we just suspend or a young woman, or do we just suspend our disbelief because we know that this is a biopic?
You just have to accept it. But a biopic, you could have asked somebody else, younger version.
Yeah, but the problem is that person would have to look a whole lot like the actress at the time. I feel like
all the way alike, right? So you just know that it's the person, but and they do their little performances. But I think that it was just kind of so seamless how they went from being a teenager to being grown.
That's true.
Actor, it wasn't like a stark cut off, except from a small child to this teenager.
Yeah. So so there's that. But at this bus station, we get Jennifer Lewis playing her mother in the film. And Jennifer Lewis is like always the same character in every movie. I feel like whether she's playing Whitney Houston's mother in The Preacher's Wife or anything else you've seen her in, whether she's the grandma on Blackish, like she's literally the same person. She talks the same. And I feel like if you want that character, then you just get Jennifer Lewis, right?
She is always the mother. Every movie she's been in, she's been a mother for her whole career. And her and Angela Bassett, like the same age.
Which is crazy. But we've seen that in the past, because I know when they were breaking down the ages of the people on Good Times, Florida Evans and James Evans and then JJ. James Evans and JJ's real life ages, the actors John Amos and Jimmy Walker, their ages are very close. Like I think they were only a few years apart, whereas the mother, Florida Evans, whereas the mother, Esther Roll, was actually closer to the age that she was playing. She was older. So she was like almost a full generation older than her, TV husband at the time, John Amos, which is, very fascinating stuff. So, but, I think that we can just suspend our disbelief as we move on. But Jennifer Lewis is always that same character. So basically her mother, Tina Turner's mother, is laying down the rules of her house. She's like, look, everybody in this house works and you here and you got to keep, you got to earn your keep to be around here. And so she makes Eileen, her sister, take her to her job. Now, Eileen works at this club. So this club is where she first sees Ike Turner, right? And Ike Turner is on the stage. He's performing with his band or whatever. And then they have this part where they send the mic out into the crowd and they let women sing the part the part of the song. And if you're good, you're good. If you're not, then, and they pass the mic around. Right. And her sister is telling her, because her sister, I think, is bartending at the club. Her sister is like, look, Ike has a reputation and stuff, like this is not the man you want to be making googly eyes at. But Tina is like, no, not from his looks, and Tina did not believe, or I should say Anna Mae, because she's not Tina yet. Anna Mae did not believe that Fat Meat was greasy. She did not believe that this man who is up on the stage crooning and flirting with all these women, she was like, he seemed like a nice guy. I was like, oh, Anna Mae. So later that night, Anna Mae is practicing the song at home so she could try to sing once, they pass the mic around at a different night. So then, of course, she goes on another night. She gets her turn the next time she's at the club. But when she comes that second time, see, the first time her hair wasn't done. She looked very childlike. She was wearing, I think, two ponytails, and she just didn't look like a woman. So then she comes in the club and her sister is like, Anna Mae, I told you not to wear the white dress. So she comes in full on grown woman. You know what I'm saying? And so her sister is looking at her like, oh no. So then she gets her turn at the mic or whatever, and she goes up on stage. And when I tell you she was older looking, she came in, ready to hook, to get the part of, singing, but also she's interested in Ike. which I think is I appreciate the way that the story is being told, because, Tina wasn't like, oh, he just sought me out. And she went to him. He was performing on stage. She was fanning out, and she also wanted to sing. So her sister is like, look, I hope you know the territory that you're getting into. I hope you know that what goes along with this. In other words, you're going to have to give something up. You coming around here, messing with these grown men, and they going to want grown men activities. But Tina still was smitten, and Ike was Ike. Okay. So she goes out with the band after she performs or whatever, and it's Ike and another guy. And they go to this diner, and, clearly Ike is interested. And he's like, basically, I found my new singer for the band. Ike also starts complaining, like the very first time that they talk about how he has made so many people famous, but when they get famous, they always leave him. And so then Tina at home is telling her mama and her sister, like, oh, Ike wants me to come sing, with the Ike Turner Review and all of this and that. And then, one of them says to her, Anime, get your gullible country ass out the clouds. I don't know why this line always makes me laugh, but you have this mother and daughter, Eileen, and the mother, who have been living and figuring out how to finesse these dudes, together. And then you have Anime, who's come from the country and, is not used to these city talking slick dudes like Ike Turner. And so they do not believe that Ike wants her to sing, he and Eileen is like, look, he tells this to all the women and whatever, but they are proven wrong when Ike shows up at the house, and he almost charms the panties off Anime's mother, right? But she gives permission for Anime to go and work with him. And to seal the deal, he gave her money. He gave her cash money in her hand. So what do you think of that? Like the fact that he slid the mama some money, and then when he slid her money, that's when the mother was like, well, okay, she can go ahead.
Well, yeah, because she, as long as you have business, right? And you ain't just out there just doing whatever you want to do. But the whole thing about being from the South and stuff, and, supposedly the country, they just equate the South with that a lot of times, right? Mm-hmm. But there's this movie, MMA, or also they called it Black Sisters Revenge. It have like duplicate titles. It kind of addresses that sort of issue, because she comes down from somewhere else, and they're like, oh, this old slow country girl, you know what I'm saying? And then a lot of stuff just ensues.
Yes. So next we see Anime in the recording studio, or in Ike's house where he's recording records and whatever. And he's telling her, sing it rough and whatever, don't just sing it regular, sing it rough. And so her mama is there watching the recording, and she's like, you got her sounding like a man, don't be, And Ike is like, look, I know what I'm doing. He assembles the Ikeettes to sing as her backup and everything like that. And so, Ike says, hey, look, we going out on tour. Now, Ike has a woman who he has a couple kids with, Lorraine. And this is his, baby mama or whatever. And she's there at the house, and she sees all that's going on. So the girls try to tell Anime, that the ones in the band, that like, look, Ike got his eye on you, but he also has a thing for a lot of women. And he always has a new woman, because, when they tell her this, she's like, oh, but, he has Lorraine. And they like, don't let that fool you, because he always got a new woman and whatever. Now, I'm like, well, how does he always have a new woman? Maybe he was always dealing with women on the sides. But I mean, he had 2 kids with her, so she had to be at least around for a few years.
He was just like Ray.
Like Ray Charles?
Yeah.
He had the woman at home, and then but see, the thing about Ray is Ray wasn't mixing his worlds. We're talking about Ray Charles in his biopic, right? He wasn't mixing his worlds. He had a whole wife and kids at the house. And then he had, his background singers that he was sleeping with, and the women on the side, right? But they weren't at the house. First of all, he wasn't married to Lorraine, and Lorraine was at the house where he was also bringing other women to the house. Like, this is a recipe for disaster, and Ike was old enough, he should have known better than to do this mess. But anyway, Ike is playing on the piano, and then Anime comes in and whatever, and she's like, "Oh, and he starts telling her that she's pretty and whatever." So you already know what's about to go down. He got his eyes on her. He's been had his eyes on her, and so clearly they both liked each other. It's not like he just came out, "I'm gonna be predatory." No, but he made sure that she stayed close, and he could use her because she had talent and could sing in his band. So you think that he's going to make his move on her and kiss her or whatever, but he doesn't. And he looks in her mouth, and then he's like, "Oh, you got cavities. I'm going to have so-and-so take you down to the dentist, and you ain't never been over dentist, have you, old country girl?" That's kind of how he's acting. So then he tells her, "But no, it's too late to go home. You stay the night." And I'm like, oh, Anime is so just gullible and young at this age. So in the middle of the night, she's sleeping in Ike Turner's house. Now, he is not in the room with her. But Lorraine comes in with a gun pointed at Tina, waking her up, at Anime while she's asleep. And is like, "What's going on?" And all of that. And then Lorraine doesn't shoot her, but she's like, "You're not even worth the bullets." And then she leaves out of the room and she goes into another bedroom. And then you hear a gunshot go off. And of course, Anna is shaking and she screams. And then, Ike comes in and is like, "What's going on, Lorraine?" And he sees Lorraine just shot herself. And he's like, "Oh, it calls for the other guy, come up here and see what's going on. She done shot herself, And so we see that's going on, but this is Ike's fault. Like, you done brought another girl or woman into this house with you and your main woman, and you wondering why people shooting themselves and threatening to shoot other people. This reminded me of, though? It reminded me of Al Green, that story we hear about the hot grits and, the tragedy that happened with that, because I believe the woman who killed herself, well, she did kill herself, So anyway, it just reminded me of the mess going on when, this man who's trying to do business is, setting himself up to have all of his comforts around him. So they load Lorraine into the ambulance and she's screaming, "Why is she here, Ike?" Talking about Anime. Because why is she here? Why is she in your house? Like this, Ike. So Anna stays at Ike's house until he comes home from the hospital that night. And then Ike is like, Lorraine gonna be fine. She gonna be okay and whatever. And so Anime asks if Ike, "Are you okay, Ike?" And then she starts comforting him, touching on his hair and hugging on him and stuff. And I guess there's an aspect of it where if you see somebody shaking up, somebody just shot themselves, where you want to comfort them or, try to make them feel better. But after she shot herself and an ambulance pulled off, Anime should have been hightailing her butt on home. No way she should have been still at this man's house when he got back. That's what I think. I don't know. Do you see, any reasonableness in what happened with this situation?
No.
Why was she even at the house? So Ike then, of course, does what we expect him to do. He starts kissing her. And then Ike is like, "Oh, no, I ain't married to Lorraine no more. She can't make me happy no more." And I do love the way Lawrence Fishburne is delivering Ike Turner. I've only seen a few interviews with him, and I'm assuming that's really how he sounded. But the way he delivers Ike Turner is this combination of the charisma and just sulliness at the same time. But he starts downing Lorraine. "Oh, she can't make me happy no more. She stopped believing in me," he says, "and that's the worst thing anybody can do to me." And I was just thinking to myself, you think so much of yourself. Like, you clearly were not the prize if all the people who were with you became the famous ones and not you. But then you feel like other people should be supporting your dream. Forget the fact that the people who have talent have their own dreams. But anyway.
Yeah, but so it's just like the teachers who don't get all the attention, but their students, go on and do things.
Yes, but he's like, "They always leave me." But anyway, "She don't make me feel like you do. You the only one," and all of that. So he starts, whispering the sweet nothings or whatever. And he does the guilt trip of how, "Oh, I help people." So he says this again, "I help people and they always leave me," and stuff. And see, people who want to manipulate you, they are always laying the groundwork for that manipulation. You saw first time he ever talked to her, he talked about how people leave him and stuff. And we'll find that that's something that is the running theme with him and later Tina along the way. And so, of course, Anna Mae falls for it. She's young, she's gullible. And the next thing you know, she is in the room with Ike Turner and her toes are pointed north. Okay. To let you guys know, if you're missing videos and you're not getting your YouTube notifications, we have a mailing list. Go ahead to the description, subscribe to the mailing list. You're going to get personalized notifications via email. And this way you will never miss another video from us again. And Ike is laying it on down. And so, she's going to be hooked because, she never had a man and he knew exactly how to manipulate her. So then we see Ike on tour. He and Tina are a couple now, and they're all touring together. And Ike tells the girls, "Hey, go ahead and get Anna Mae a bleach blonde job so she could be like a Marilyn Monroe." And she goes in there to get her hair done, and her hair falls out, and then she has to wear this wig. But I was just thinking to myself, why is he like she should be the Marilyn Monroe? Like, she's black, like. Why is that the standard? Not let her be the Dorothy Dandridge, but no, she should be the Marilyn Monroe. But anyway, so the one who is doing her hair, she's also really young, and that's probably one reason why she left that bleach on too long, and all of Anna Mae's hair falls out, and then they get these wigs, and that's how we wind up with Tina Turner and the Ikeettes wearing wigs. But Ike likes the wigs after they, he wasn't expecting her to come out with a wig, but he liked the wig. He says, okay, this is part of the show. This is good. So of course, as you would expect, Anna Mae is knocked up, and then she winds up having a baby. So then she's in the hospital, and then she hears her song on the radio, and it's Ike and Tina Turner. She doesn't know that her name has been changed. He done renamed her. He's changed her whole entire name. And so her mother and sister are talking about it in the hospital, while she's had this baby. And they're like, well, he done gave you a name now. This is a good man, Savannah. You better, keep this man. He gave you his name. That's what it means. He want to be, he's saying he's marrying you kind of thing. That's a good catch. And so they encourage her in this moment. But Tina doesn't like the name. She's like, Tina, like basically it sounds like a caveman name. Like, what is this, So the doctor then tells Ike, hey, look, Tina won't be able to leave here. I'm not discharging her for 3 weeks because she's sick, from having a baby. She probably lost a lot of blood and all of that stuff. Ike is not trying to hear it. He like, look, I need her to be back on the road making this money. So much of the way Ike handled Tina and others, but especially Tina, reminded me of the way a pimp handles his women on the track, What he does is he comes in the middle of the night with his enabler guys from the band or whatever, and they literally carry Tina and the baby out of the hospital. And then Tina's like, well, I really don't know, and then he gives Tina a ring, and he's like, let's go to Mexico and get married. And then we're off to New York. So she, of course, goes for it. And we hear the song, that song, You Just a Fool, You in Love, and then we see performances of that. So even though this is a biopic, we do get performances in here, but I think they're artfully weaved throughout the actual drama of Tina's life and Ike's life. And that makes it better and not like really a straight musical. Y'all know Heit hates musicals. Did you feel like this was a musical?
No, I think that at the, for someone who didn't know her entire career, it was just not enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just the mix of not having music, because if it's just a bunch of songs that I don't know and or don't like, then it's kind of gonna at the time, right? But later on, when you go through and you figure out all the songs and stuff, then maybe you wish there was more. But I think that they did a good job for making it a biopic, a music biopic, and putting in the songs that help to shape the career.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I'm always wondering, the parts where they're on a cappella and stuff, who's actually doing the singing, And I do.
Tina Turner.
Yeah, Tina Turner definitely did the a cappella singing there. But for Ike Turner, though, it sounds like it's Lawrence Fishburne.
Yeah.
It sounds like his voice. I think he did a pretty good job. Okay, let's just be clear. It's not like Ike was like some great vocalist either. But, I think Lawrence Fishburne did a good job of that. And so, basically, Tina has had the baby now, and she's like, I'm tired, Ike, my throat is bad. I need to rest, because he's wanting her to go out on stage. And then Ike is like, I got too much riding on this, Tina. I ain't trying to hear that. And so Tina's like, look, I need rest, and he's like, look, if we, basically we don't get on this stage, we don't eat. and we have people relying on us. And he was right about that part, about the people relying, because it's not just about them and if they have money. He has an entire band. He has people who have to get paid, who rely on the headliner to actually come out on stage and do whatever. And if they don't perform, they don't eat. And so this is a pressure that Ike always felt throughout. Now, of course, that pressure does not justify the stuff that Ike was doing, but that is pressure. And so, he starts playing some mind tricks and whatnot on Tina. He's like, oh, what you gonna do? You gonna leave me like all of the rest of the people that I made famous leave and all that. So here he goes again. And she's like, look, I'm sorry, Ike. And he's like, yeah, you sorry. You were sorry, MF. And I was just like, what? And then so we see this fight. We don't have anything physical, but we see an argument. And then she goes out on the stage and she sings Fool in Love while she's, a tear is coming down her cheek. And at the beginning of the scene, she's standing there like she's supposed to start. She doesn't. And then he has his back to the audience because, he's playing his instrument. But he comes up to her and he's basically so intimidating. And then he kisses her and then the crowd is all like, oh, but of course we know that this is not what it looks like from the outside. And then she starts to perform and whatever. And she throws it all into the performance. And next we see Ike is showing off all these checks he got from the record company. And then Tina's mama is there and she's like, well, what y'all gonna do with all that money? And in her, Jennifer Lewis type of way. And Tina notices that now Ike is being flirty with other women, the background, singer, one of them, and just like that. And her mama again is like, Savannah, that's a good man. She's like, Ike is just being a man. You got yourself a good man. She actually says this, just keep him happy. So again, I think we see a real generation gap between Tina's mother and Tina and what a woman is supposed to endure if she's married to a man, So meanwhile, Lorraine, y'all remember Lorraine, the one that was going to shoot Tina and shot herself, his baby's mama, pulls up and abandons her two young boys on the porch to their daddy and burns off. She like pulls up at the car, abandons them, and she's just gone. And she's like, you over here playing daddy because look, Ike has moved on. He has a baby with Tina now. She's like, if you want to play daddy, you could be daddy to these two too. And now they have 3 kids. Now Tina definitely identifies with having been abandoned by her own mother when she was young, like these kids are young. So of course she embraces them, and she ultimately winds up taking these boys as her own sons. Like she raised them. She is their mother for the rest of their lives, And so Ike is still under the pressure to deliver the songs that he owes, and he's trying to write these songs and whatever. And the bottom line, Heit, maybe you could explain this a little bit better, but he owes the record company because I guess they have fronted him money, right?
Yeah, when you sign, you get an advance so that you could deliver the product.
And they spend in the advance, right?
But he said something about, they weren't trying to put him in jail. I don't know about all that.
And this was later.
Yeah, it just depends on the connections and stuff with, the authorities. But yeah, so you get your advance, you got to put out the record. You gotta record the thing, right? But then the record label is deciding, right? So you can make 20 songs and they're like, yeah, we don't like any of that. None of those are going to be on the album. And then you still working out that same budget. Maybe you get more money, but yeah. You just have to make it work.
So Ike is under this pressure to deliver and stuff like that. He's trying to get these songs done. And he is always like, sing the songs the way I want them sung. And he does still call her, even though her name is Tina, her stage name, he will call her Anime mostly. And he's like, sing them the way I wrote them and stuff like that. And then she's like, oh, all the songs sound the same, Ike, and they get into an argument related to that. And then ultimately, there are always people around too. That's the other thing you have to understand. People outside, people at their house, people swimming in the pool. And these are the people from the band usually and whatnot. And they got into this argument and he beats her bloody with these witnesses hearing her scream. The 3 boys are there. They see this, and he's dragging her in the room. It just was a crazy scene. But this is the first time in the film that we actually see him lay hands on her. And a man who behaves like this, okay, were you doing this to Lorraine too? Did you just start it with Tina? Y'all go to the comments and let us know what you think, my Ike's history had been with all of this. Want us to break down the movie of your choice? You choose the film, we do the analysis, and you are credited as the sole executive producer. The link to grab one is in the description, and our deep dive on demand is just $75. But later on, after everything happens, Tina is making excuses for Ike when Jackie, that's Vanessa Bell Calloway's character, she's one of the backup singers, when she's telling her, like, look, you can't keep hiding these black eyes. Like, we know what's happening to you. And this is always the thing I wonder, like, what is the responsibility of the people around who know a thing is going on and they just might choose to mind their own business? Now, also, the people in the band were motivated to mind their own business also because they had an investment in Tina being around. Look, my money relies on you getting on that stage too. Okay. So there is an aspect of that I don't know.
So what if they didn't mind their business? What does that look like?
Well, we're going to see later when, Jackie doesn't mind her business and she winds up getting thrown out of the group.
Yeah, but you said, like, you basically have a responsibility to not remind. You know what I'm saying? You're supposed to do something. What are you supposed to do?
I don't, so the women, I think it's harder for them because he would have physically, as we saw, do the same thing to them that he does to Tina. The men, I feel like maybe they would have had not only I think if his enablers, the people who helped him carry Tina up out the hospital and who are there, if they could have just maybe said, hey man, pulled him, that kind of thing. Come inside when he's dragging her through the house, because they were there and they just watched it happen.
And then, I do what I want. Then what?
Then you got to make a decision if you want to be there for this or not.
Yeah. So.
And I'm not saying it's an easy decision when your life and livelihood depend on it. I'm just saying.
Yeah, but the whole enabling part, then you just gone and then it still happens.
But you at least are not helping it to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so.
When you're there, you're not helping it to happen either.
I think you are. You are. If you're literally helping to carry Tina out of the hospital, you're helping him to do all of the things that he does to keep her in this prison, to manipulate her. You are helping,
What's some examples of that they did to help keep her in the prison?
What they're advising her to do. And we'll see it later because we're actually going to break down the cake scene and we'll see what the right-hand man says in that scene to Tina and not to Ike. So, but we basically witness Tina making excuses for Ike, blaming herself when she's talking to Jackie. That's Vanessa Bella Calloway's character. And so then after, this is again, after he has beat her to a pulp, then Ike returns. He's got a gift for Tina and stuff like that. I guess this is supposed to make up for the beating. So then backstage after performing on Bandstand, Phil Spector meets and wants to record, but he's like, oh, and then Ike is all like, oh, you want to record with us? Haha, and then he's like, nah, I just want Tina. So then we get 1966 River Deep Mountain High with Phil Spector and Tina singing with him only. Now, Ike is so jealous of Tina's success apart from him because the song is like a hit and everything. And she really had to dim herself to be with Ike, right? And this is just kind of sad. But you could tell Ike is jealous. And I think you could also tell that Ike is like, oh, she doesn't sing like that for me. Like I don't get that out of her. And instead of looking at himself as how he may have contributed to that dynamic between the two of them, I think he just became her number one hater in this moment. So then that's when we get to this.
And then Phil Spector later on killed his wife.
Yeah, and then so look, people that's exactly what Phil Spector did and went on trial for it. And if you listen to different people's biography talking about or autobiographies talking about Phil Spector, it was one of them. I'm trying to remember who it was, but anyway, because it was a black singer, and she was talking about Phil Spector and how weird he was, and she went to his house to try to perform with him, and then he just was doing some weird stuff, and she just was like, yeah, I got to get the heck out of here, and she did. But anyway, I don't remember who it was at this moment. But go to the comments if you happen to know. But yeah, Phil Spector was clearly, Looney Tunes, and ultimately wind up doing, hey, look, Ike did, as far as we know, Ike didn't kill anybody. Not that it makes what he did right, but yeah. So River Deep Mountain High is a hit, and that is the backdrop of this scene, which is probably the most famous scene in the film.
In the U.S., that's Tina Turner and River Deep. More of your favorites coming up, so stay right where you are.
So what happens is they're at this diner and we hear River Deep Mountain High playing over, the music at the diner. And Ike is like, turn it down, turn that mess down, Now, mind you, if it had been an Ike and Tina song, he would have been like, that's us right there. But because it's Tina's song with Phil Spector, he's like, turn that mess down, turn that mess down. He is just like her number one hater in this moment.
Hey, turn the music down.
Hey. In the diner, and these kids come up to them and they want an autograph from Tina.
Can I have your autograph, Miss Turner?
It's Mrs. Turner. That's a married woman you talking to, boy.
And so they're, talking and whatever. And so Ike is still continuing to be a hater and whatever. And so then after that, Ike mentions that, hey, the Ike and Tina Review is going on tour with the Rolling Stones.
Finna go on tour with the Rolling Stones, huh?
Let's celebrate and whatnot. And so he orders the cake that's, like a diner is always going to have some type of dessert. He's like, bring that whole cake over here. Give us that cake.
Can we get some of that cake? Matter of fact, bring that whole cake over here.
He starts to eat the cake at the table. And he's like, come on, Anime, have some of this cake. And she's like, nah, I don't want any cake. No, thank you. She's being nice about it. He's like, oh, come on. He continues to try to force the cake on her.
Come on, Anime. I want a cake. Come on, just a little piece.
And then she's like, look, Ike, you high and you embarrassing me.
Come on, Ike.
What's the matter, baby?
You high, you embarrassing me.
And then he's like, eat the cake. And he becomes more and more insistent.
Oh, come on now. Open your mouth.
And he's like, oh, but if a white man asks you to open your mouth, she'll open her mouth and she'll sing all day.
So that white man asks her to open her mouth, she sing all goddamn day long. I ask, you ain't gonna say nothing now.
So now we're also getting insight into part of how Ike is processing the interactions between Phil Spector and Tina Turner, right? He's like, you basically did good for him, but you won't do good for me. That's how he perceives it. When everything that I've seen is that Tina was walking on eggshells trying to do everything she could to actually be everything Ike wanted.
I think it was more than Phil Spector, right? So a big part of the film, what I like about it, I don't really think we've seen a lot of it in other movies, is the idea of the British invasion, right? Where the British came and they were performing black music. And then when you had those regular black artists from the 60s, then they were kind of pushed out. So that was one of the reasons that there was this pressure that was going on. And they talked about, the songwriting in comparison to what the British were doing, right? And he even announces about being happy going on tour with the Rolling Stones. Now the black artists are reduced to playing second fiddle to the white artists. And not only that, then, for there to be number one hit, then this black artist who is his wife has to go and, be on the song with, written by the white folks.
A white British guy.
Yeah.
Well, no. It's Phil Spector. I was thinking about that.
Yeah, Phil Spector. So it's just a big part that kind of like really unspoken about some of the narrative in this film and issues that presented.
Mm-hmm. And so of course we get the, he's insisting on her that she eat the cake, Anime. She's saying, no, I don't want to eat the cake. And he takes the cake and he shoves it in her mouth and on her face. In this moment. And then she's upset like anybody would be. And her reaction is just to hit back at him in the moment and throw the drink on him. Okay, what does she do that for? Because I'm allowed to beat up on you, but you are never allowed to fight back or give me any flack. And this is what happens, and it happened publicly. So then that's when he goes in on her. And Jackie, her friend, the Vanessa Bell Calloway character, she tries to intercede, is like, hey, don't do that or whatever.
Oh, so you done lost your motherfucking mind.
Leave her alone.
Now, mind you, a whole grown man is sitting right there also at the table, but it's the woman, Jackie, who tries to intercede. He smacks Jackie so hard that she is like doing a flip in the aisle, basically.
Sonny, come on.
And Jackie is like, no, and he's like, get out of here,
Come on, bitch, get up. Come on, get up.
Fuck you, white.
So he hits Jackie. And then Jackie is like, looking around, after this happens. Tina's like, it's okay. It's okay. And she's like, it ain't okay to let this MF pound on you.
Jackie, it's all right. It's not all right to let some motherfucker pound on you.
This is not okay. And you are going to be a dead woman if you stay here.
You a dead woman if you stay here.
And don't let me catch you around my house either.
And Anime just doesn't even know what to do in this moment. And also, you have the guy holding Ike back from attacking Jackie more.
If you had any sense, you get out of here too.
You know, I think it's like to keep him off of Jackie in this moment. Ike is like, get out of here, don't come by my house. So pretty much Jackie gets thrown out of the group, you know, the band, for trying to stand up for Anime in this moment. So we see what the consequence is, but then they go back and they sit down after they've made this big scene in front of everybody, acting a fool. And then also, see, we really didn't know for sure up to this point that that Ike was on them substances, but like it's confirmed because, Tina, it says that he's high. And so when they sit back down at the table, Tina is sitting there. She's trying to wipe the cake off of her face.
Hey, somebody come in here and clean this shit up, please.
And deal with this. And she's embarrassed publicly. Then the guy says, Ike goes back to, come on, Anime, just this cake is good. Eat this cake. And then the guy is like, Anime, just eat the cake, please.
Anime, come on. This cake real good. Anime, just take the cake, please.
Now, we just have to debrief for a second about this particular scene. The bottom line of it is that after all this, the dude is just like, Anime, just do what he says.
Yeah.
That's crazy as hell. We have what we call our binge playlist that we update on a regular basis. And what this is when you get ready to go to bed, go ahead, click the link in the description to our binge playlist, and then you will be able to watch videos from us that you probably haven't seen before.
But all right, from the whole history and what we seen exactly in that scene, right? You said that he held back Jackie's. Well, held him back from Jackie. So he did intervene in that, right?
Yeah.
But Tina is saying it's all right. So she's accepting of this. What am I to do for somebody who says that this is the relationship that we have? And then for us to function properly, whatever, or cordially, I don't even know what you call it, right? For it to get through the day, you're still going to be here. We're still going to be here. You just have to eat the cake. You accepted this relationship, right? It's like, who am I to tell somebody that they shouldn't get hit when they tell me it's okay if I get hit? That's just what we do. And
that's the hard part of it all, right? Is that when a person has basically resigned to accept that which is unacceptable, that which is dangerous, and all of this abuse, then you are going to be limited. But the one thing I say is that you don't have to be a part of it. And the decision to be there and be a part of it for the sake of your paycheck or whatever else it is that you choose. Because some people are like, well, I want to be there so I can make sure it don't go too far. That kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
There are people, they justify it in a whole bunch of ways. But it's just when you think about this. And then we also have to talk about the fact that this became the most famous scene because comedians and everybody else, even, and of course, I was a young person when I saw this film. So I didn't fully understand and process, hadn't lived enough life either to have understood what was happening fully with Tina. And so they laughed in this moment. The audience laughed at her. Everybody laughed at this situation. And Eat the Cake Anime became a meme before we even had memes.
Yeah. But even, recently, Drunk in Love, where you got Jay-Z talking about, I don't play now, eat the cake anime. And then he repeated it, eat the cake anime.
Yeah. Yeah. And the reality is that, and this is just my female perspective on it, is this. You have men who hit women, and you have men who don't hit women, but who watch men hit women. And then you have men who actually don't tolerate it. Like, to me, those are the categories I see. And it seems that most of the men that I've come across tend to fall into one of those two categories. Either they're hitting women, or they're enabling men, or justifying it, or not doing anything.
But is it
when
any
it's happening.
Different if Tina accepted and this guy and Frost, I think that's who it was, and Frost accepts it?
Well, Tina accepting it and Frost accepting it are two different things, because on a physical level, Tina could never really contend except toward the end where she gives him a run in prison.
Same as Frost could leave.
I think Ike had a much bigger hold on her than he did on Frost, even mentally, because I think that is the low-hanging fruit of justifying why women stay is to say you could leave. Well, but you got to even be in the mental space to leave. And the other thing that people aren't talking about enough, because she does actually leave, and we're going to get to that, so let's just talk about her leaving. So then after Jackie leaves, Tina decides, look, I need to leave. So she gets up in the middle of the night and she takes those kids, the three of them, right? Ike's two and hers, but her son with Ike, all three of the boys, she takes them, she calls her mother and is like, Mama, I'm coming out to see you and whatever like that. And she begs her mother not to tell Ike. So her and the kids take the bus. They own a Trailways. And then Ike, we see, calls Tina's mother. And then, of course, Tina's mother tells she is a traitor. And so Tina is at this restaurant and Ike is there waiting out, on a stop where they stop for you to use the bathroom at the rest stop, whatever. And he has the other two boys already took them off the bus. So when she comes back to the bus with the baby, then they're not there. And she's like, what happened? She sees them getting in the car with Ike. It was Michael and Ike Jr. They're getting in the car. She's like, don't go, don't get in the car. And then Ike is like, you better get your ass in this car. And it's just like she tried and then she couldn't get away from him. He's like, look, you my meal ticket, you my cash, and I'm coming to pick you up. And you're going to be punished basically for the fact that you had the nerve to try to leave me. Yeah. And we know that this is also the most dangerous time for women when they try to leave. And a lot of times they might wind up 6 feet under as a result, them and the kids. So it's more than just you could leave, to kind of get back to that.
Yeah. But Jackie didn't leave either until it happened to her. Is she similar to Frost?
I mean, she has a level of culpability, but at least Jackie said something earlier. Now, we don't know what Frost may have said to Ike when nobody was around. We don't know. Maybe he was like, man, lay up on Tina, man, don't do, I don't know. But the way it's portrayed in the film, it seems like he's just a total enabler, whatever crazy thing Ike wants done that is going to advance his hold on Tina and his abuse of her. He is just like, pretty much okay with.
Right. And the same thing with what Jackie said, you could do it to her, but once you do it, all it takes is one time for you to do it to me.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah,
so
she does say that.
Accept it in the same way that Tina accepted it, right?
You like I'm not here. You ain't got to hit me but once.
And it is different if somebody come physically get you, but I guess.
Ladies, go to the comments. Like, okay, if this was your friend and it was happening to her and you're like, girl, you got to get away, girl, you got to, or whatever. Or if you were in Jackie's situation, you're touring with them and this is going on. Like, what do you feel is your responsibility as the friend, the girlfriend of the situation? And guys, I want to know, are you a Frost? When do you intervene at all? And I'm not saying that to like indict anybody, because I think this is a conversation that we all should be having. And to be clear, because some of y'all get on your, very sanctimonious soapboxes of, well, I would never look.
I've never been in a position.
And the thing is, I think if people are telling honestly how they feel in the moment, the way we all evolve is by having the conversation and providing ways that we might be able to handle some of these difficult situations better than we otherwise would have.
If it's as common as people say, I would think that most women know something that this is happening, right? So that's just what I would suspect. But I haven't been in this position at all, ever.
You've never seen a guy hit a girl or be ready to manhandle. What about raising voices or doing red flag behavior? Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, I did.
And what did you do, if anything?
So I was like, are you okay? And they were like, yeah. So
to the girl?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know what I'm saying? That's just how it is. I don't know. What am I supposed to do? Well,
I'll just say this from a, in full transparency, from a woman's point of view, I had never seen it really happen. I had heard stories of it happening to girls and women, but I had never actually seen it occur. It would just be the little red flag things that in retrospect, you're like, Okay. But especially a lot of things happening when I was younger, like maybe your friend, you hear about this or you hear about that, where they say things that now at my big grown age, I can see as a red flag that I didn't see as red flags at the time. But I will tell you what, it is not until until you get cold cocked in your face or physically assaulted by somebody who is not supposed to do that to you, not that anybody is, that it begins to twist your understanding of what the world is even made up of. And I can say that having been on the receiving end of that in the past, and y'all, before y'all get into, certainly not in my marriage at this point, but if you've had that happen to you, it's a totally different thing, because I did not grow up seeing that. It wasn't even on my radar as a possibility until it happens to you. And so in terms of the way that women, when they see things, you got to be wise enough to even understand that you're seeing what you think you're seeing. Okay. Because I was fully grown in the moments when that happened to me. So yeah. And then I just did not get too deep into it, but just to say, the first part is you can't even believe that it happened. The second part is you're highly embarrassed. So even though I know that I have all these resources that I could have said something, I didn't go and say, hey, look, this happened. I did not do that. Now, I mentioned it in retrospect after everything had been handled and I was done and out of that circumstance, but I didn't mention it when it was going on. And I think that is not uncommon. Okay, this is a very quote unquote normal reaction to that. And what I also say is, after I got over the disbelief that this could even occur and had happened, then it's like, you got to go through processing and, dealing with how you feel about what happened, how it makes you feel about yourself, and the fact that that you can't physically compete. And then I would just say, in brief, in my circumstance, there was something in me that let me say, it clicked to say, look, there could become a moment when it's going to be you or this person. And there was something in me, the survival mechanism perhaps, that clicked in and said, we just going to be moving furniture up in here. And somebody is just, but you not getting ready to lay down here and let this happen to you. There, you will fight, and that will be it. And then, once I kind of got my head together around it, but there is a mental component of it that I can't say for anything. And I've had lots of difficult things happen in my life, but this is a bird of a whole nother color. And I think it's very difficult to understand unless you've actually been on the receiving end of it. Especially if it just wasn't. Now, maybe if I had grown up seeing this and this being a typical experience of my girlfriends and stuff, then maybe I could have been better equipped, but it just wasn't something that was on my radar in this way. That was something that happened to other people, other places. It did not happen to me. And when it did, I was just like, wait, what?
Yeah.
So that's the experience.
Yeah. But it reminds me of the whole thing. Like, people are going to just say, happened to me, I'm gone, right? If I see it, I'm going to stop it.
It's like saying, oh, if I was a slave, I couldn't have been no slave. Yeah. Okay.
So it's like this situation with Quanell X.
Oh, yes.
He say, call me the N-word. You know what I'm saying? After somebody else was already called the N-word.
Yeah, he said, say it to me, and then I'm going to make you taste the ancestors. And then you said something so crazy when we saw that. What did you say?
I don't know. I said...
You said, why he
got to say it again?
Why he has to say it a second time?
Yeah,
basically, it should have been on site. Make him taste the ancestors when you see him. Shouldn't even be no production about it. And, certainly I don't advocate any sort of violence or whatever, but yeah.
You
sometimes
already
that's
have
the answer.
Probable cause. This called a probable cause ass whooping, right? You don't need him to say it a second time to get probable cause. You know what I'm saying?
Like it's crazy though.
But, that's easy to say, right? If he showed up over here. If George Zimmerman showed up, what y'all doing?
But, well, we know what they doing because he didn't encounter plenty of other people and he's still walking this earth. So anyway, but so just on the whole mental thing, seeing things happen to people, not intervening, I think that we should all be understanding and realistic about us all not being in the same place. We don't all come to the table understanding the same things, and we may process it differently. And I don't think it's the role of any of us to be indicting other people. But I will say that Like I don't know, and maybe this is just me being a woman, but I just say a grown butt man sitting here watching this stuff, like it's just certain things I expect intervention on, and when I don't see it, then I think things about that grown man who would sit idly by, like, because there are a lot of men, back to your situation where you said you asked her if she was okay. Now, do you feel that this did her relationship to you or not, like as far as how you knew them, was this an acquaintance, a friend, whatever, did that determine whether you would intervene? Are there circumstances if she was a complete stranger where you wouldn't have?
Yeah, if it's a complete stranger, probably not.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
But if it's somebody who you would at least know, familiar with, you know, if you had been on a college campus and then you saw somebody that you just would see in class sometimes, you know,
I'm
not
pull
have
my phone out and go live. Hey, y'all, check this out.
Shut up. But yeah, so like I think
maybe, I don't know, if it's like somebody who I see all the time, then maybe, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. But if I know both of them, if I know the woman, then maybe. But if I know both of them, then maybe not, right?
Right.
Because when you know somebody, it's just, you know what I'm saying?
And maybe that's what it was for Frost.
Well, he seen her get knocked around. So that's a little different.
You know, but yeah, it just is, it's just crazy. And so I would say, but like things, you know, different life experiences, they kind of shape the way you look at stuff. They shape what you might see as acceptable or unacceptable and all of that. But I think that if you grow up in a circumstance, you know, as I have shared with you, where you do feel safe, you know, where you have men in your life, you know, like my dad was there. They were, you know, you have men in your life. I had grandfathers, you know, and uncles and whatever, you know, that made you feel safe. Then you don't ever question feeling safe, and it just doesn't feel like a possibility. Whereas if that maybe had been different, then maybe stuff would have been more on my radar with that. But you know, if it's not, but like, so then when you go on and you move on beyond these experiences and stuff, like there are just going to be certain requirements when you think about your partner, your mate, your husband, your, you know, or whatever, from a woman's perspective, that are more on your radar after you've had some experiences. Like, yeah, anybody would be looking for red flags after you missed red flags. Right. And you know, and feeling safe is an important thing. Not only feeling safe from that individual and that they would never act like that, but then also that they are the type who would intervene. They're not going to just sit there and let some old craziness go on. But, you know, those are my kind of personal things I took away from, you know, from the experience, and other people may take away different things. But y'all go to the comments as a safe space. And I'm tell you what, if anybody gets in the comments and starts talking crazy and indicting people about stuff or criticizing women for what they did or didn't do as victims of this type of stuff, you just gonna get blocked. I'm letting you know that out front. But as a safe space where if you feel like you want to share or say a thing or two, you know, I'm always interested in hearing the different stories. And look, if you are a man who experienced it, because it does happen to men, although full disclosure from my end, it just seems a lot less prevalent, but I'm aware that it does happen to men too. And if you wanted to share those stories, I think that we do have a mature enough group in the comments that, you know, we all can share and exchange and all of that stuff. So back to Ike and Tina. We do have merch here on Axiom Amnesia, and this Axiom Amnesia logo hoodie is one of my favorites. And we have other types of merch too. You can find our merch at axiom.app. So after this happens, she's tried to leave. She can't leave. He won't let her and whatever. And so then we see, different montages of them singing or whatever. Ike and Tina are performing in London with the Rolling Stones. And then that's when we get to see, Proud Mary, the song, and the famous, probably the most famous song, you know, from Ike and Tina Turner, you know, Rolling on the River, where she's doing the dance and all that, right? So we see that happen. And then the movie takes us through the early 70s with more of the Mary performance. Time is just passing with the Proud Mary performances. And then it's the point where Ike is, you know, doing coke and whatever. And Tina is trying to record in the booth because they have like a recording booth like in their living room where she's trying to record. But, Ike is mad and whatever. He's like, you ain't singing it like I want it sung and all this and that. And of course, he's on the substance. So, he's not reasonable anyway. And he's certainly not going to be reasonable when he's on that stuff. So, then she's talking and then he's complaining about it. And he's like, what, you forgot the words? Because she keeps recording and he keeps stopping and so on. And she's like, oh, of course I remember the words, Ike. I wrote it. So now we see Tina's confidence in herself. Plus she's getting annoyed with him start to bubble up. And she's like, I'm trying to help. I'm trying to help Ike is what she says. And then he's like, you trying to help Ike? And see, they're actually in this moment. And it wasn't until I really examined what happened in this scene that I realized they're not even saying the same thing. She's like, I'm trying to help Ike. I'm trying to help. Not I'm trying to help Ike. I'm trying to help. And then she says his name at the end of it. And he's like, you're trying to help Ike as in you trying to help me as in me personally. Right. And so then he flips off. Witnesses start leaving when they see this dynamic, which is kind of what we were talking about. Right. They start leaving. Ike got the powder on his nose and everything. And then he just basically, starts hitting her. People leave. And then inside the booth comes like the most ridiculous horrifying and savage moment of the film where he actually violates her in the booth right there after the people leave. And then in the next scene, we see her face is all swollen. She's been kind of beat to a pulp. She's trying to apply makeup. She's going crazy. And we find out that she's taking some pills and she's just trying to be out of there, So then when she's being rushed in the ambulance, Ike is over her in the ambulance talking about, if you don't make it, I'm gonna kill you, And so like she can't even get away from him as she tries to just slip on up out of life. And she's in the hospital and whatever. And Jackie, the one who had been kicked out, she comes to see her in the hospital. And Tina returns home and Ike is talking about, well, we got to get back on the road. So Tina can't never rest, number one. And he's like, I hope you got some rest when you went in there and tried to, off yourself. And Tina just looks like all of the fight is gone from her. So she goes to visit Jackie, who shares her Buddhist beliefs with her and shows her how to chant. So then they joke about Ike while they're talking to each other and whatever. And they're like, imitating Ike. Oh, you better do this. And how Ike talks. So then Jackie imitates Tina in the moment and then it gets real, because Tina was always like, it's okay. Oh, no problem. And stuff like that. And Tina gets really sad in that moment. And that's when Jackie is like, look, when you chant, you can see things more clearly. When you see things more clearly, you can change anything. And so Tina actually maintained her Buddhist beliefs until she passed away. But she basically disconnects from Ike and we see her being physically there, but she is mentally checked out. So she doesn't really care. She has to mentally and emotionally disconnect from him. And then they get into a fight later. This is 1973 in Texas. They get into a fight in the limo and this is where she's wearing the white suit and whatever. And he has the nerve to beat her with a boot in the car. And she fights back this time and she gave him a run for his money. And I don't know, when I saw this in the movie, originally in the theater, I was like, yeah, girl, but like after you've been through a few things, you just realize like she was like, I'm going to fight for my life. You are not getting ready to do that to me one more time. So then they get to the hotel. She's all jacked up. Ike is there. Like, this is just normal that I just, did all of this. And she goes to look at herself in the mirror after they've checked in. And then Ike's talking about wake me up about an hour before sound check. So to him, this is just typical. Everything's going to be the same as it always was. She goes in the bathroom. When she sees her injuries, she was all jacked up. She just like, okay, whatever. When she comes out of the bathroom, she sees he's passed out. And then it just dawns on her like, I need to just make a break for it. She runs. She doesn't take anything. I think she had a little purse and the clothes on her back. She goes to another hotel with nothing, but those clothes on her back and asks for a hotel room. It's the Ramada Inn. And she says, look, I have 36 cents, but I'll pay you back for this room if you could just give me a room for tonight. The manager sees her and he's like, look, we'll be honored to take care of you. Because he sees that she is just, been obviously assaulted. So then in 1977, they're in divorce court. Tina is like, look, I'm going to give everything up. He can have it all. I just want my stage name. So she gets the stage name granted to her. And we see in 1980, she's working at a hotel in San Francisco. So she has come down a few rungs. She was huge. And then now you're basically, entertaining in San Francisco at a hotel. She's trying to get this manager to sign her. She's singing disco and whatnot in the moment, but she's still performing. So then Tina meets with the manager and says she wants to do rock and roll, not the stuff I did with Ike and stuff. And so Ike then approaches Tina in the parking lot, and she will not talk to him at first. And he's like, I brought you some flowers. And she agrees to talk to him. She's like, I'm going to give you 2 minutes. So then they get in the car. And what I noticed is she wouldn't let him close that car door because she was like, I need to be able to have this door open. So if I need to hop, I can hop. And he's like, well, the record company is trying to put me in jail. And that's what you had referred to earlier, because he owes money. And he's like, you know, if I could just make a hot record, we'd be back on top. And I've been writing. And if I just make a hit, you know, so not only does he want her to come back so he can be out of the hole he's in financially, he also wants her to come back because he wants that old thing back, you know. And Tina's like, look, I got my own songs. I got my own band. And Ike is like, but ain't nobody going to buy that. He's still like, you want something for her and you still putting her down. Like, that was just crazy to me. So she tries to leave, and he says he misses her, you know, and I want that old thing. Come on back home. You done did this long enough. Come on back home. So, and he's like, I done gave up that narcotic. I remember when we first saw this, we used to joke about this, you know, I was a youngin'. So we used to joke about this line where he's like, I done gave up that narcotic. But yeah, he says he got off of it. So that's good too. But I mean, later he was incarcerated. So he might have been temporarily off of it. Or maybe he was lying in the moment. But basically, he's like, I'm going to try to do right by you. And then when she doesn't seem receptive, he goes back to, well, I made you and you ain't nothing without me. You ain't never going to be nothing and whatever. So then the question that's posed in the last bit of the film is like, Tina is 43 years old. Can she make a comeback? You know, and let me just mention that Mike from Why Did I Get Married, the actor, he is playing Ike Jr. in this movie. And then he comes. Richard T. Jones, yes. He comes to to Tina's house, and he's been beaten up. Now, these are Tina's sons. Even though he was with his daddy and stuff, he's been beaten up. He said his daddy did that, and he's like, look, you know, he's been talking crazy about you. He has a hit out on you. And so sure enough, just before her big show at the Ritz, where she's about to showcase, you know, the whole What's Love Got to Do with the album and everything like that, Ike comes backstage with a gun. He pulls it out, but Tina is fearless. She's like, so what you gonna do, Ike? I got a room full of people who come to see me, not you, but me. What you gonna do? You know, are you gonna shoot me? You gonna pistol whip me? What you gonna do? Because she just straight punked him. And she was like, because I'm about to go out here and perform. I don't know what you gonna do. And then she leaves the room to go perform, go to stage. And he just had to tuck his gun back. And because he didn't know how to act when somebody is not afraid of him, right? So then she performs What's Love Got to Do with It. And of course, you know, that was a smash hit, that whole album. And then Ike went on, they said, oh, you know, he went to prison on charges for them substances and stuff. And then Tina had a bunch of hits after that. And then we see the real Tina Turner at the end performing and stuff. And then when the credits roll, they play the song I Don't Want to Fight, which she recorded for this movie. And then that is the end of the movie. I know that was a long one, but that's the end of the movie. So I think as a biopic, to me, this was a really good biopic. Now, I don't have any comment about the truthfulness or not of the things that happen here, but it seemed that there were enough witnesses that the basic story seems to be pretty true to form and reality. Did you think this was a good biopic?
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah. So, but again, and one of the reasons we hadn't been doing biopics is because the biopics, you know, we judge films and the characters and stuff, but if the characters are real people, we don't want to be judging the decisions in people's lives, you know, that way, the way that we might for a fictional character. So it is a little bit more difficult, but I would just say in the way the film was made, presented, the way the music was weaved in throughout, I think the film was amazing. I would love to see more of her story after the fact because, you know, Tina Turner still lived many years. I mean, she's passed away now. She passed away in her 80s, but she still was performing for a long time after this. And she did a lot even after this. But I guess this was the crux of her story, was the comeback and her being, you know, on top and whatnot. Yeah. And I liked for the biopic, I liked that she was involved. I liked that this was based on her, how she saw herself and her telling her own story, as opposed to some unauthorized retelling or somebody else telling, you know, like if you look at the Michael movie, because, you know, here we are in May of 2026, the Michael movie came out in the last couple months. And, you know, it's not Michael telling his own story. It's other people telling Michael's story and, you know, varying degrees, perhaps, of truthfulness in certain aspects of the film, right? But when this is the person's own words, then we know what they said happened, and that is their definitive record of their life. And I like that. And I think Angela Bassett should have won an Oscar for this. And of course, she did not.
Of course not.
You know, she didn't win an Oscar for anything. And then they had to make up an Oscar to give her finally. And she has done some amazing roles throughout the years. And she is an actress that just doesn't get enough, enough acknowledgement in the areas that seem to count to actors, especially like, you know, with these mainstream awards. But I think that she should have gotten an Oscar for this. And was she even nominated? Let me just see.
I think she was, but so some of the things that happened was it wasn't until Black Panther when she got on a real blockbuster, right? I think most of the movies she done was just kind of like, yeah, they weren't giving her just these super roles. You know what I'm saying? And except, you know, when she was in Malcolm X, she was Betty Shabazz twice, right? And I think that's it.
So she got nominated for this role. She did get nominated. She did not win. They say that it was highly competitive. She was nominated in 1994 for Best Actress. And then she got Best Performance by an Actress in a Supporting Role nomination for Black Panther, her role as Queen Ramonda. But yeah, But she lost to Jamie Lee Curtis, the one that she was nominated for in Black Panther. And I'm not sure. Let me see. 1994.
1994 was The Piano. Ada
McGrath. Yeah. Who were the other people nominated? Do you know?
Holly Hunter was the winner.
Yeah, she was the winner.
You had, I don't even know how do you say her name. Let's see. Oh, the name is first. Emma Thompson, Deborah Winger, Stockard Channing.
What were the movies?
6 Degrees of Separation. The Remains of the Day.
Okay.
Shadowland.
Okay. So 6 Degrees of Separation, you know, that was the one that was with Will Smith.
Yeah. That's the only one I think I saw.
Yeah, I've seen them all, and I don't even remember. Like, they're not memorable to me, except The Piano.
Lawrence Fishburne lost. He was nominated for
Ike Turner.
Yeah.
But
so, Tom Hanks won for Philadelphia.
Yeah,
so.
like Tom Hanks and Denzel Washington in Philadelphia. Like, you can't, you know, like,
that's
so these were
year.
competitive years.
And that was the same year as Schindler's List. Liam Neeson.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I just think that there are some years that are not so good, and it just also depends on when your movie comes out in terms of the competition. And so this is, but as far as Angela Bassett, and I think that they both played amazingly in these roles. And so, you know, that's what we have in terms of What's Love Got to Do with It. But this movie, seeing at different points in my life, you know, once when I'm younger, and then many times throughout the years, and then reflecting on it in preparation for this, like, I think I finally really get it in its totality in the way that a person who has been through it, who has lived life, might get it, as opposed to just, you know, being able to dismiss and
better than what people who are critiquing our review of Michael and say, just enjoy it, right? So if Michael's biopic should be just enjoy, why can't we just enjoy Tina Turner's? You know what I'm saying? Or anybody else's? No, you don't just enjoy it. There's a message and things happening.
Yeah.
And that's with any movie, film, piece of art. I don't just go in it like, I'm going to like this and say that everything I see is great.
Yeah.
That's not how it works.
Yeah. So I definitely appreciate that. And I'm looking forward to whatever you guys say in the comments about some of the feedback, how you felt when you saw this film, your own experiences and stuff like that. So, you know, I really do appreciate it. Finally, I want to thank the co-executive producers, Veronica J. Douglas and Regis Hale, who supported this video as co-executive producers and helped to make it happen. Please go to the comments and thank them too. We appreciate your support more than you know.
If you made it this far, type probable cause in the comments so we'll know you're one of the real ones who stick around to the end.
And be sure to check out one of the videos that's on the screen right now. And also be sure to visit axiom.app, where you'll find all of our recent videos in one place with links to them back here on YouTube so you can watch them. Bye.